It pays to remember foreign region language, vocabulary, and abstract information. The more intelligible a thing is, the more easily it is retained in the memory. And contrariwise, the less intelligible it is, the more easily we forget it. Benedict Spinoza. You may not think the above quote shows any particular brilliance on the part of Mr. Spinoza. You may feel sure anyone knows that if something is intelligible or makes sense, it is easier to remember. Well, that's true. It is an obvious thought, but it took Mr. Spinoza to say it or put it down on paper just that way. As far back as the 17th century, I'm making a fuss about this particular quote because it tells you in one sentence what this entire book is about. Almost all the systems on the book in the book are basically that. They help you make unintelligible things intelligible. One example, of course, is the peg system. Numbers by themselves are usually unintelligible, but the use of the peg system makes them mean something to you. Perhaps the best example is trying to memorize foreign region language vocabulary. A word in a foreign region language is nothing but a conglomerate of sounds to anyone who is not familiar with the language. That's why they're so difficult to remember. To make them easier to remember, you will use the system of substitute words. Substitute words or thoughts are used whenever you want to remember anything that is abstract, intangible, or unintelligible. Something that makes no sense to you can't be pictured, yet must be remembered. Be sure you read this chapter carefully because substitute words will also help you remember names. Making up a substitute word is simple. Is simply this. Upon coming across a word that means nothing to you, that is intangible and unintelligible, you merely find a word, phrase, or thought that sounds as close to it as possible, and that is tangible and can be pictured in your mind. Any word you may have to remember, foreign region language or otherwise, that is meaningless can be made to mean something to you by utilizing a substitute word or thought. Years ago, I was a tropical fish hobbyist for a while, and I was trying to remember the technical names of fish fins. Since I couldn't picture their names at that time, I used the substitute words to remember them. For example, the tail fin of a fish is called the caldya fin. In order to remember this, I made a picture of a fish with a long cord instead of a tail fin. The picture of a cord was enough to help me recall the fish. Cayudo. The fin on the back of the fish is known as the dorsal fin. The first thought that came to my mind when I heard dorsal was Tommy Dorsey. Dorsal, Dorsey. I automatically associated Tommy Dorsey with a trombone, so I simply made a picture in my mind of a man playing a trombone on a fish's back. This may sound like a long procedure to you. It isn't. The association from dorsal to Tommy Dorsey to trombone to the actual forming of a picture is the work of the merest fraction of a second. The thing for you to keep in mind is that the thought or picture that comes to you when you hear any intangible word is the one to use. I use Dorsey for dorsal, but you perhaps would have thought of dorsil, which would have served the purpose just as well. The Spanish word for bird is pajaro, pronounced pacaro. Can you think of a substitute word for it? It's easy. Because the word almost sounds like parked car, of course, is something that is tangible and which you can picture in your mind. So why not make a ridiculous or illogical association, as you've already learned between parked car and bird? You might see a parked car crammed full of birds, or a bird parking a car, etc. The next time you try to recall the Spanish word for bird, your ridiculous association will help you to recall that the word is pajaro. The substitute word you select does not have to sound exactly like the foreign region word which you are trying to remember. For pajaro, you might have used a puckering ew water or parks in a row, either of which would have also helped you remember the word. As long as you have the main part of the word in your picture, the incidentals, the rest of the word will fall into place by true memory. This is strictly an individual thing. There are some substitute thoughts I use that I couldn't possibly explain in words, but they do help me recall the foreign region words. The words I use may be great for me, but not for you. You must use the substitute thoughts that you think of. I am explaining this so thoroughly because it is one of the most useful things you will learn in this book, and I want you to understand just what I'm talking about. To remember a foreign word about and its English meaning, associate the English meaning to the substitute word for the foreign region word. Let me give you a concrete example of this system using a few simple Spanish and French words. Veneta means window in Spanish. You might picture a girl when you know whose name is Anna throwing a vent through a closed window. If you wanted to remember the French word for window, which is fenêtre, you might picture a window eating a raw fan, or a fan eating a raw window. Fan ate raw. Feneta. The Spanish word hermano, pronounced hermano, means brother. Just picture your brother as an earman. The Spanish word for room is cuarto, pronounce cuarto. Picture a room piled high with the quarters. Vasa means glass in Spanish. See yourself drinking from a vase instead of a glass. The word bridge in French is pont. See yourself punting a football on or over a bridge. Pluma means pen in Spanish. See yourself riding with a gigantic plum instead of a pen, or you're riding on a plum with a pen. The word meaning father in French is pere. Associate father with pere, and you'll always remember it. The sample associations given above are those that I might use. It's always best to make up your own pictures. Try this method with any foreign language vocabulary, and you'll be able to memorize the words better and faster, and with more retentiveness than you ever could before. Aside from languages, this system can be used for anything you may be studying, which entails remembering words that have no meaning to you at first. A medical student who has to memorize the names of the bones in the human body may have some trouble with femur, coccyx, patella, fibula, sacrum, etc. But if these were made into substitute words or thoughts, like this fee, more, femur, rooster, cock, kick, or cock, six, coccyx, pay, teller, or petella, then the student could link them to each other or associate them to whatever it is they must be associated to. The pharmaceutical student could picture someone pushing a large bell down over him. Well, he throws a pile of trees from under it to help him remember the atropine. Hydropine comes from the belladonna, bell down, root or leaf. I am actually making up these substitute words as I write. With a little thought, you could find much better substitute words for them. You might want to picture a giver donor of a bell, remember belladonna, etc. The point is that the substitute word or thought has meaning while the original word does not. Therefore, you make it easier to remember by using the substitute word. You will get some more pointers in and practice on this in the chapter on how to remember names. So I started this chapter with a quote by Benedict Spinoza. May I be so presumptuous enough to end it with a quote of my own? Anything that is intangible, abstract, or unintelligible can be remembered easily in a system. If a system is used whereby the unintelligible thing is made to be tangible, meaningful, and intelligible.